All right, everyone. Well, good afternoon. My name is Cody, Systems Engineer here at Veeam Software. We're here with StarWind. We're going to be going over security for the mission-critical data. We have a guest with us today. We have Max over at StarWind Software. So a few things about Max there, guys. He is the product manager of StarWind Virtual SAN with 9+ years of Q&A and engineering experience at StarWind specifically, but 11+ years of professional IT experience, and an active Spiceworks community contributor. So with that, Max, I'm going to pass it on over to you.
Okay. Thanks very much, Cody. Hello, everyone. And I'm not sure we went through the housekeeping, but just wanted to say it once again. We are recording, so this will be on YouTube later on. And if you have any questions, there is a great questions box on the GoToWebinar panel. You can use it anytime to submit your questions regarding Veeam, StarWind, or anything in between, the hypervisor, you name it. Now, let me just advance this slide here. Okay. I'll just quickly go through the agenda of our today's event. So first, for those of you who hasn't heard about StarWind's hyperconverged appliance, we'll briefly describe what it is and what are the benefits of using it. How is it different from all those competitors in the hyperconverged hype world? We'll also discuss why it's a better experience and better security with a hyperconverged architecture compared to a traditional virtualization architecture. Show how we manage the entire solution with a single pane of glass approach, and then you'll hear from Cody on the Veeam Availability Suite architecture, and he'll show you a great live demo showing all the bells and whistles of Veeam, which makes it the best backup solution. And in the end, we'll have a small Q&A session, and we will gladly answer all your questions. So a little bit about StarWind's hyperconverged appliance. We were a company producing storage virtualization software for a long time, but last year we decided we need to take a different approach and simplify storage and virtualization to people who are building their virtualization environment. And we wanted to make sure people can easily and quickly deploy their virtualization environments, and they don't need to go to multiple vendors for that, to configure servers, to configure backups, to configure networking and stuff like that. So we decided we'll deliver a turnkey solution which will include all the components one needs for a robust and successful environment, and that is the StarWind hyperconverged appliance. We've brought together a really good list of components, both hardware and software, making sure that our solution is only using best-of-breed components. So we've got servers from Dell delivered either through Arrow or through Xbyte. And we have the major hypervisor support, which is Windows 2012 R2 Hyper-V and VMware vSphere 6. And we, of course, have the key to the success, which is the software. That is StarWind Virtual SAN, that is Veeam Availability Suite, and that is the 5NAND manager. Together, all these components form a robust and highly available solution for virtualization environments. Now, there is also additional benefit for existing Veeam users, because we now run a special offer which allows existing Veeam users to not only get StarWind HCA with an ability to bring in their existing license and reuse it, we also have a special appliance line for them, which is built for longer lifespan and thus has better components. And with better components, we decided to provide some premium feature, and that is 5 years of free premium support for Veeam if you purchase StarWind Hyperconverged Appliance and you're an existing Veeam customer. So that is something we'll discuss later on down the road. And I wanted to tell a little bit more about our appliances, our model line, and how we are different from all those competitors out in the market. So our lineup is quite broad. We offer all types of servers, starting from the tower servers for environments where one does not need or does not have a rack. Then there are the standard scale-out units, which are our large model. Those are 1 unit servers. Then there are ultra-dense X-large servers. These are 2 unit servers delivering maximum spindle to CPU and RAM ratio, and all that in just 2U footprint. And there is XL Ultra, which boosts the existing 2U density with NVMe and 100 gigabit networking to deliver maximum performance under any circumstances. There are really lots of scenarios where StarWind's hyperconverged appliance can fit, starting from the small branch offices where you can have just 2 turbo servers protecting your entire environment and making sure that you're always highly available, even if that's a small office. And in the head office, the lineup can be broad as well. So in this particular setup, we have a 3-node hyperconverged appliance cluster running the majority of the virtual machines, and then we have added 2 XL units here to run our VDI workloads in the head office. So it still acts as one big cluster running replication between branch offices and head office. And there is also replication happening to Microsoft Azure on both per virtual machine and per LAN basis. So there is Veeam running replication for mission-critical virtual machines. So those are not only on-premise but also backed up in the cloud. And there is StarWind replicating the entire site to Azure just in case. We all know that HA is not the ultimate answer, so keeping a disaster recovery plan in place is something you always want to have. Now, one big thing which differentiates StarWind's hyperconverged appliance from the competitors is the ability to upgrade hardware. So where majority of vendors do not allow anything but adding another node, whereas you need more compute or you need more storage, with StarWind hyperconverged appliance you can easily add that independently. So you have the initial configuration, you can easily upgrade RAM, you can easily upgrade storage. You can also scale out by adding more nodes. And of course you can scale up. You can add individual storage, but that doesn't mean you need to add it to all servers. You can add it to certain servers and everything will still be operational, and that storage will still be seen by the remaining nodes in the cluster. And of course, you can then add more storage and more compute power to each of the hosts in the cluster. So that is unprecedented flexibility. The only way to be more flexible is to purchase your own servers and software separately. Luckily, that's not needed anymore, since StarWind's hyperconverged appliance allows to do that and still maintains all support and all service unified. So a little bit about StarWind itself. As you know, there is a storage fabric which keeps every hyperconverged appliance together, which makes sure that the storage of each individual server is seen as a cluster resource. Your applications can work safely and fail over should one server or even more servers fail. And in case of StarWind hyperconverged appliance, StarWind Virtual SAN is keeping all the servers synchronized. It takes ownership of the local storage, mirrors it between the host, and then presents it to the local cluster as a cluster storage resource. So your applications running inside of virtual machines can always be safe and don't need to worry about what goes with the underlying storage. It is always on, it is fault tolerant, and it is always fast, since we take all the advantage of the data locality. Sorry for that. So we only use local path to deliver the data, and that makes StarWind's hyperconverged appliance significantly faster than the traditional SAN plus compute nodes layout. And here's why. In the traditional environment, a virtual machine transfers data from hypervisor to certain initiator. Then that data goes through the network. Then eventually it gets cached on the SAN, and only then it gets to disk. So with StarWind, we use the fast track, which is the green arrow here, and as soon as data is transferred from the virtual machine to the local hypervisor, it is instantly transferred to the local RAM, which is used as StarWind distributed write cache, and then transferred to the local disk. So there is no network involved in I/O, which makes it tremendously fast, and latency is almost equal to 0. This is what we call data locality, and this is what allows us to deliver consistent good performance on any node of the cluster, because we always have a local path to write to, making it faster than any interconnect possible. And of course, saving on dedicated SAN and saving on the proprietary networking required for it. Everything here is interconnected with the standard Ethernet, and let's say for a two-node solution like we have pictured on the screen, we don't even need a switch for storage. These two servers can be directly connected using 10 gigabit connection, and that will be completely sufficient for synchronization and storage fault tolerance. A hyperconverged appliance wouldn't be complete without a set of management tools which allow users to manage not only storage but also the hypervisor and the backup from one place. And this is something we also accomplished with the help of Five9 software and Veeam by doing a joint solution together, which allows customers to manage their entire environment. And this solution is called Five9 Manager for Hyper-V, and it really allows you to manage all the resources from one place. Not only that, but it also delivers a better management experience. So let's say with Hyper-V, we don't need to go to the traditional cluster manager. We can now use 5NAND manager to manage all resources from one place. It's the cluster, it's the node itself, it's the networking, its storage, and its backup, all in one window, which also delivers more, let's say, vSpherized experience compared to Hyper-V, which lots of our users found really great because Microsoft's approach to virtualization is a little bit different. So all those users who have originally learned virtualization on vSphere find it harder to learn the Hyper-V way of managing. So 5NAND really helps here with simplifying all the controls. And obviously for vSphere-based hyperconverged appliance, we can always support the standard vSphere console that provides us with the same level of management as 5NAND management for Hyper-V provides here. As I said, there is not only the hyperconverged appliance Hyper-V manager, there is also storage monitoring included. So we can manage our block devices here. We can see all the IOPS reports. We can see our current status. We can see the latest storage alarms in here. And it also includes the monitoring tool which provides the information either on screen or sent to your email. And of course the same goes for the backup. So Veeam is integrated in this management console and you can see your jobs, you can control your jobs from here, and you can also see events from your backup. So if something goes wrong, you can see it right away, or you get a notification to your email. So it's really a single pane of glass management experience with our appliance. And we wanted to make sure that not only the hypervisor and storage are involved, but also the backup. Because, as I said, even though it's a highly available appliance, it's still a very good idea to have a DR plan in place. And that concludes my part of the presentation. And with that, Cody, I think it's time to do a demo.
All right, Max, I appreciate it. That was awesome there. Great information that you provided. It looks like Kamal did have a question here for you. And this may be a Veeam question. It may be a question for you. So does hyperconverged approach require any agents to be installed on the ESXi or vCenter servers?
Not really. So it's the same approach as usually with Veeam. So no. So
no, an agentless approach then, it sounds like.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Perfect, perfect. So Kamal, hopefully that answers your question there. If it doesn't, throw in the Q&A box, guys. We're more than happy to go over that a little bit more in depth for you guys here. But really the rest of the amount of time, I really want to spend this on the Veeam solution, right? So the whole point of joining the webinar today was really go over, hyperconverged, Veeam and StarWind, how we worked great together, as well as security, right? Security for your environment there. So the Veeam Availability Suite, just a few points about Veeam here, guys. Again, we are an agentless solution, right? No agents included at all in the products there. So we're simply licensed per CPU socket on the managed host, and we only require that you license the source of what you're backing up and replicating and not the target, right? So keep that in mind there when if you are evaluating a Veeam solution for your infrastructure, or possibly even looking at a Veeam and StarWind infrastructure, right? So backup replication is really what we started with. It's really what we're known for. But the Availability Suite solution actually combines both backup and replication as well as Veeam 1. Veeam 1 is going to provide you that monitoring, reporting, as well as capacity planning, not only for your virtual environment, but also your backup and replication environment. All right, so keep that in mind. And Veeam, being agentless, we work with both Microsoft Hyper-V as well as any license paid version of VMware ESXi. All right. And being agentless, the reason why we do not work with the free edition is because we need to have access to those storage APIs in order to do our backups. Right. Now, you see 5 pillars down there at the bottom of the screen here, guys. Now, keep in mind, these are going to be our 5 pillars, right? So we're going to have functionality built around each one of those pillars. High-speed recovery, for example. Veeam has an instant VM recovery functionality where we can actually restore a virtual machine and run that virtual machine from a compressed and deduped backup file, right? Data loss avoidance, it's pretty straightforward there, right? But we want to make sure that you're not losing any of your mission-critical data there. So, having a low RTO and low RPO is going to be essential there for that highly available environment. Verified recoverability. Veeam, we have functionality built into the solution that allows you to actually test your backups as well as your replicated virtual machines that you're creating within Veeam to ensure that in the case that you actually need to use those, you can actually restore data from those backups or replicated virtual machines. Right, that piggybacks right on the leverage data there, right? That's how we're leveraging your backup files and replicated VMs. And then lastly, complete visibility. Right, you don't need to be wasting time in your environment there trying to drill in and be proactive about addressing an issue there. You need to have complete visibility into that. That way you can go on with your day, and if something does occur in your environment, you get notified immediately. All right, and so that's what Veeam 1 is going to provide for you there. Now, as far as architecture for backup and replication, it's really going to be 3 components. That's it. Okay, so you see at the top of the screen the Veeam backup server. Right, so keep in mind, guys, we're a Windows application. Right, so you can install Veeam really on a physical or virtual machine. Right, so that's nice. Right, say you go with the StarWind solution there. Right, you can spin up a Windows virtual machine, right, 2012 R2 or really any 64-bit instance of Windows, and install Veeam there. Right, that's going to be the brains of the operation there for you. And then you see 3 proxies deployed in the diagram. Keep in mind, guys, these are optional components. Veeam is so flexible that we're not going to charge you for those additional proxies. First off. Second thing is those proxies are really allowing us to scale to your environment because the proxies are doing all of the deduplication and compression that takes place in our jobs, right? Because Veeam, by default, right out of the box, we are going to compress and dedupe those backup files that we're creating for you guys, right? So there's no extra licensing or agents or add-ons, none of that. That is all included in the product there, guys. So keep in mind, of the Availability Suite solution, there's just 3 different flavors that you choose from. Availability Suite Enterprise Plus, or Availability Suite Enterprise, or Availability Suite Standard. So just depending on what kind of functionality you need, depends on which edition is going to be the best fit for you. All right, so the backup server, physical or virtual machine, proxies can be physical or virtual machines as well, just Windows 64-bit OS. And then the far right-hand side is going to be that backup repository. And this is the easiest piece to understand here, guys. And Veeam is 100% storage agnostic. So it really doesn't matter whether you're backing up to a NAS device, a SAN, local storage. I mean, you can even back up to an external USB drive if you wanted to, right? So keep that in mind. You can use your existing hardware that you've already invested in, right, for your backup files. Or if you're looking at another solution there, right, another hardware solution, StarWind's a great option there for you guys, or really any disk, right? So that backup repository, Veeam is completely storage agnostic, so just keep that in mind. Now, with every customer that I speak with on a day-to-day basis, I try to set up their environment going off that 3-2-1 rule. Right? So if you haven't heard of it, the 3-2-1 rule just means 3 different copies of your data on 2 different types of media, 1 off-site. Right? So this is going to ensure really that a solid disaster recovery and backup solution there for you guys. Right? So some sort of corruption happens. Will not necessarily end the world because we have other copies of our data off-site, right, that corruption hasn't reached. Right, so just an example of one of those scenarios where you're going to need redundant copies of your backups or of your mission-critical data there. So the way Veeam addresses this, right, is by that 3-2-1 rule. The way I would want to see this set up in your environment is run a Veeam backup job to that local repository. It creates a compressed and deduped backup file, and that's usually what you're going to be leveraging on a day-to-day basis, right? File level restores, entire VM restores, whatever it may be there, is normally going to come from the most recent state of the virtual machine, right? So that's why you're going to keep those local there. But from there, what we can do is run what we call a Veeam backup copy job, And all the Veeam backup copy job does is makes a second copy of the Veeam backup file that we've already created that's compressed and deduped. The backup copy job just makes a second copy of it and sends it to another storage device. All right, so that storage device hopefully is off-site for you. It can be a NAS device, and whatever storage device it may be, it can be local, it can be off-site. It can even be a cloud repository through Veeam's Cloud Connect functionality. Right, you can actually go to Veeam's website and actually search for a Veeam cloud provider right there on the website. Right, Veeam does not have its own cloud, right? But if that's something you guys are looking to do, is get copies of your data off-site, but maybe you don't have your own off-site location. Keep in mind, Veeam's already thought about that. It's included in the software. There's no additional charge. So reach out, start having those conversations with the Veeam cloud providers. Or maybe you need to archive things to tape. Right, Veeam has tape support. It just needs to be LTO3 or above, and it's going to go from disk to disk, and then it's going to offload to tape. Right, so keep that in mind, guys, when you're setting up your disaster recovery plan, whether you're focused on security or high availability or whatever it may be there. Right, that 3-2-1 rule is going to ensure really the best solution. And if you want to go above that, right, 4-3-2-1, by all means. Now, with Veeam Replication, there's a big misunderstanding when people think about Veeam Replication. So when Veeam is talking about replication, this is providing that true DR solution for you. So Veeam, again, being agentless, we're going to call on VMware or Hyper-V to take a snapshot of the virtual machines. From there, we're going to take that entire virtual machine, wrap it up, and compress it before we shoot it over to another ESXi host or another Hyper-V host for you. I would want to see that replicated off-site. That way you're protected against a true disaster, flood, tornado, fire, whatever it may be there. It doesn't necessarily have to. Right? So with Veeam Replication, this is providing that true DR solution for you, and that you're going to have a fully hydrated, registered and inventory virtual machine that's just left in a turned off state there, waiting to be powered on. Right? Because in the case of a disaster, you don't want to have to wait for it to be rehydrated. You don't have to wait for it to be registered. You want to get back up and running as soon as possible. Right, so that is Veeam Replication. So keep that in mind there, guys. So a couple different options. And one of the more important pieces I do want to touch on that is right in the middle of the diagram, traffic throttling, network mapping, and re-IP. So one of the most important we get a lot of questions around is that re-IP option there. So to answer most questions out there, yes. If you have a 192 IP scheme in your production data center, and maybe your DR is a 10.IP scheme, we can absolutely re-IP those Windows VMs for you mid-flight so you don't have to do that yourself. Also, maybe you're concerned with pushing that much data across your WAN. Right? Well, keep in mind, the Enterprise Plus edition of the Availability Suite solution includes WAN acceleration. Right? So if you need to speed that process up, whether it's pushing your backup files or you're replicating your virtual machines off-site, right? WAN acceleration is included here, so that is going to speed the process up and actually pushing that data off-site for you. And again, guys, if anyone has any questions around anything we're going over, anything that Max has covered or I'm talking through, let us know. Right? If you have a question, we want to make sure everyone's taking away something from the webinar today. And then again, encryption, right? So security, right? That is the main focus here. Keep in mind, with the Veeam solution, you can enable encryption if you would like. Right, we are going to use that gold standard, as people put it today, that AES 256-bit encryption. So your data is going to be secure. So keep that in mind there. But without further ado, guys, let's jump into the software and show you the Veeam software in action. So if you haven't seen Veeam before, you haven't seen it in action, this is the interface. Right, this is Veeam backup and replication that you're looking at. Right, so you have a nice, pretty green interface. This is version 9, so keep that in mind. It was released January 12th of this year, so this is the latest and greatest. And keep in mind, guys, it's very easy to navigate, very easy to use. Right, when you're setting up the software, really everything's basically wizard-driven. You can right-click just about anything in the software, and your options are going to come up here. All right, so first things first, I need to enter the DNS name or IP address of my vCenter machine. vCenter is not required. It's just we would prefer that because it allows us to be vMotion aware. If you just need to add the ESXi hosts themselves, it's perfectly fine as well. And then as you see here in our demo lab, once we add the vCenter or those ESXi hosts, from there, that's what's given us visibility into the environment that we're trying to protect for you. Right, so keep that in mind. Right, so you'll see this load up here in a second, and there's all the virtual machines we're going to be protecting. Next thing we're going to go do is add our backup repository. Right, so again, Veeam is 100% storage agnostic here, guys. So, right, you want to attach that storage to a Windows server, perfectly fine. Linux, absolutely. Maybe you don't want it attached to a server, right? Maybe you just created that share, right? // throw in the UNC path, right? Perfectly fine. Or maybe you're one of those organizations that has one of those dedupe appliances, right? The EMC data domains, Exagrids, or HP Store Onces of the world. We absolutely have an in-depth integration with those guys. Keep in mind, yes, Veeam is 100% storage agnostic, but we do have additional in-depth functionality here if you're running certain versions of EMC storage, NetApp, or HP. So keep that in mind there, guys. But setting up a backup job and a replication job, very, very simple. As you see here, we categorize them on the left-hand side. But let's go jump into maybe just maybe a file level restore here. So I can go to this big restore option at the top of the screen, and I have my options, right? So I can either restore from a backup file, or I can restore from a replicated virtual machine. I have my options here, right? So maybe I need to go grab a file just from my Windows file server. In that scenario, what I'm going to do is choose guest files for Windows. If I have Linux or another virtual machine that I need to go grab a file from, I'm going to choose guest files for other OS. Most of the scenarios, it seems that it's just a Windows machine that you need to go grab that file from. So we'll walk through this process here. The next screen is going to take me to all of my different jobs I've scheduled. So I simply just drill down into the job that has the VM I need to go grab the file from. From here, I can actually specify which point in time I need to go back to. So this is just dependent on the backup job that you've scheduled, right? So I can specify up to 999 restore points here. For this job, I've only specified 4. So I can choose 4 points in time to go back to. I simply hit next and then finish, and Veeam automatically takes that backup file from the point in time that we chose, and we mount it to the Veeam server through our patented vPower technology. Right? But what's important to note here, guys, is that we are not restoring the entire virtual machine just so you can restore an individual file. That would take a lot longer than what you're actually seeing take place here. What we're doing is taking the configuration files of that virtual machine, mounting that to the Veeam server, and then it's just opening it up here in the backup browser for you. So as you can see, guys, it's the same look and feel as it would within Windows, right? You would need to go drill down into that folder, just double-click. You need to drill down even further, double-click until you find what you need, and then when you're ready to actually restore it, you have a couple different options here. I just simply right-click on what I need to restore, and I can either overwrite the original, I can keep the original, or I can copy it to a particular location in the network, and I can preserve permissions and ownership if I'd like. All right, and it really is that easy. So as far as the file restores, it's that easy here. And then keep in mind, we haven't even gone over the Veeam Explorers that we have included. All right, so we have an Explorer here for Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, SQL, even Oracle. Right, and so for you guys out there that are curious about the additions of what this is compatible with, Exchange and SharePoint, 2010, 2013, as well as even 2016. So for you guys out there that performing that file level restore, that email restore with an Exchange is a pain for you, you can just see here at really how easy it is to go restore what you need and then continue on with your day. All right, so it's the same process that we just walked through there, guys. Is we chose the VM, we chose which point in time, hit next and then finish. Veeam takes the backup file, mounts it to the Veeam server, and then we open it up here in the Veeam Explorer for Microsoft Exchange. So as you can see here, guys, it is compatible with 2010, 2013, 2016. You just have to configure it. Our demo lab only has 2010, so no need to configure 2013 or 2016. But then you simply drill down into that Exchange database. You find a user. You can go drill down into their inbox. If you need to preview the email first, just simply double-click on it. Make sure, is this in fact what I need to restore? And if it is, I can simply just right-click and restore it back to the original mailbox like it never even left. Or maybe I don't need to go back to the original location. Maybe I need to go export as that PST file. I can do that now. All right, so you have your options here. But we make it very, very easy for you just to go drill down on what you need, restore what you need, and then continue on with your day. All right. Now, for SQL is a bit different here. So I do want to talk on this here just for a second because Veeam, we are still going to grab an application-consistent copy of your SQL virtual machines. How is Veeam going to do that? We're actually going to leverage that VSS framework, right? So we're going to leverage the Volume Shadow Copy Service framework right, to quiesce those VMs. All right, quiesce is just a fancy term for quiet, right? So essentially for SQL and Exchange, keep in mind, Veeam is going to process those SQL and Exchange logs by default. All right, that is a default setting. You can turn that off if you don't want us to, perfectly fine. But then for the SQL DBAs out there, if you want us to actually back up those logs, we can. We can do that as often as every 5 minutes. All right, and so if you have Veeam backing up those log files, you can see where this is going, but that's going to allow us to restore down to that specific table transaction level. All right, so if I need to go restore to that level within a SQL virtual machine, I'm going to go choose the Microsoft SQL Server option. From here, I just simply choose the virtual machine. I can choose which point in time. I hit next and finish. Again, Veeam takes the backup file, mounts it to the Veeam server, then opens it up here in the Veeam Explorer for SQL. So we can restore to another server, we can restore database and schema, right? There's a lot of different options here for us. But if you have us backing up the log files, this is where we can get down to that specific transaction for you. All right, so say somebody changes something at 2 o'clock. Just drag the taskbar at 2 o'clock, specific transaction, and next. From here, I simply choose that record and hit restore, and it's really that easy there, guys. So there's no sense in recreating the wheel, right? Restoring a whole virtual machine just so you can go copy out one individual file or whatever it may be. So keep that in mind. If anyone has any questions on this, let me know. More than happy to go over that a little bit more in depth with you guys. But that is Veeam backup and replication, right? So also, one last thing I want to note on those explorers is that when you install a trial, you'll notice that those explorers are all installed separately, right? Backup replication, and here's the explorer for Active Directory, Exchange, SharePoint, SQL. So say, for example, you have a disgruntled employee that left the company late last year, right? And for some reason, you need to go grab an email from that Exchange database, but unfortunately, you didn't have Veeam backing it up. Maybe you had a legacy backup tool in place that backed up that Exchange database. Really not a problem there. As long as you can get the Exchange database and those logs here, you can open up just the Explorer for Exchange, add that Exchange database and the logs, and browse it with the same view that we just saw. All right, so keep that in mind, guys. These Explorers, there's a lot of different use cases for them. So if you have any questions about it, let me know. But again, also keep in mind that Veeam, we're committed to giving away free stuff, right? So if you are interested in Veeam backup and replication, what I recommend is go to the website, download that fully functioning 30-day trial license. It is going to be 30 days from the time that you download that. But when that 30 days runs out, it just reverts back to the free edition, right? So you can still grab good copies of your backups. The free edition is going to be limited, right? You can't schedule backups. It's always full backups, right? Things like that. The Veeam 1, that's something we didn't cover today necessarily, but Veeam 1, again, same thing. I would recommend go to the website, download the fully functioning 30-day trial license. That way you can at least see, what the full-blown version, supports there, what it provides, some of the information it's going to provide you. And then if you, don't have the ability to pull the trigger on purchasing Veeam 1 there, right? Just let it revert back to the free edition, right? You're still going to have limited functionality, but it will give you some insight into your environment. Visio stencils. So, right, I'm one of those guys. I love Visio. I love what it can bring to the table. I love having the different stencils, right, from different organizations there. So go grab those from the website whenever you have a second. And then lastly, the endpoint tool. So this is a very, very popular product that Veeam has released late last year. So it was really built for backing up Windows-based laptops and desktops, but keep in mind, guys, it does support 2008 R2 and above server instances of Windows. So it's VSS aware, it's free, it integrates with Veeam backup and replication, supports server instances of Windows, and it runs on a schedule. Right? So there's a lot of great benefits for that guy. But again, if anyone has any additional questions or if there's anything that I can do to help you out personally, don't hesitate to reach out to us, guys. So again, I appreciate the time today, guys. Appreciate you joining the webinar. So we're going to hang around here for the next 20, 25 minutes or so and answer some of these questions you guys have presented us here. So again, thanks for joining the webinar. If you have a question, hang around and and throw it in the Q&A box. We'll make sure to go over those for you. All right, so Kamal, looks like we had your question answered, so let me know if you have any additional. Looks like we have a Goldmine SQL server. The backup works fine, but replication fails, always on VSS snapshot. Yeah, so I'm taking it that you're an existing Veeam customer there, so if you could provide a little bit additional information there, I would appreciate it. That would help us. We increased the wait time to 1,800 seconds, but time's still out in sale. Are there any plans for Mac iOS? So to answer your question there, with the endpoint product, no immediate plans to support Mac. Just today, I think it's mainly just because of the market share. Right? You look at Veeam, right? Windows, it's going to be huge. So backing up those Windows machines, and you can see really where the writing on the wall is coming from there, right? But Gory, if you want to get on a call, shoot me an email, personal email there, and more than happy to send you a WebEx and take a deeper dive into it there for you. Now, Max, it looks like we do have a question here. How would they reach out to somebody if they wanted to have a conversation about pricing or licensing for a StarWind appliance?
That is a really good question. So if for that, we need to jump just 5 or 6 slides earlier when I showed my contact information. So let's just briefly show it once again so everyone who wants to learn more about StarWind Hyperconverged Appliance could write down the address.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second here, Max. I will get that pulled up here for you.
Yep. And in the meantime, if you already got your pen handy and you're anxious, it's starwind.com, sales@starwind.com. Or if you have a question to me personally, that will be really easy. It's max@starwindsoftware.com or starwind.com. We jump to a shorter domain, but still using the old one.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. So, Max, it looks like we have a question here from Chris, and it's a little bit prompted at both of us here. So we'll let you go, and then I'll answer from the Veeam perspective. But it looks like both StarWind and Veeam seem to offer tape backup solutions. Which one is better to use for tape backups when both are working together? What would your opinion there, Max?
So let me do one thing first, just to double check. Veeam does work with tape backup, right?
That is correct.
Yeah, so StarWind is the tape backup. We do have a virtual tape backup solution which does a non-disruptive upgrade of tape infrastructure to a disk-based infrastructure. So basically it's two solutions working together. It's not one better than the other.
Exactly, and that would have been my exact response there as well, there, Max. Right? So it's not an either or StarWind or Veeam, right? I mean, in that scenario there, Chris, it would really be both, right? Get the both, what Veeam brings to the table as well as StarWind. All right, so hopefully that answers your question there. Looks like we have a question here, or maybe more of a comment there. We have a server that seems to start during a backup schedule at odd times. Joe, shoot me an email, personal email there, and I'm more than happy to go over that for you as well. I want to make sure we're getting your questions answered. Looks like we have a question here. Does Veeam endpoint backup dedupe across multiple machine backups when using with Veeam? So keep in mind with the endpoint product, it is going to be limited, guys. I mean, it is a free tool, right? So keep that in mind. But it is going to compress those backups, but it is not going to dedupe those backups. All right, so keep that in mind there. Hopefully that answers your question there, Javier. Is it possible to back up to Amazon S3? So Carlton, great question there, right? We've been getting a lot of questions around those public cloud offerings. Just keep in mind, to answer your immediate question, yes, Veeam can absolutely back up to that Amazon AWS instance if you need to. The way you would do that, and what I'd recommend is do some research into the Veeam and Amazon AWS storage gateway. What you would do is spin up a virtual tape library and add that Windows server to your Veeam install as a backup repository, right? And then when you run that backup copy job to that virtual tape library, in the back end that's really going up to that AWS instance. All right, let's see what other questions we have, guys. Keep them coming as well. So if there's something you're wanting to go over, StarWind, Veeam, or StarWind and Veeam related, Max and I are more than happy to go over those for you. All right, Joe. So it looks like I threw my contact information up there on the screen for you. So feel free to shoot me an email or give me a call anytime if there's anything I can do to help. But again, guys, keep the questions coming. So it looks like we have one here. All right, perfect, guys. So, Max, as far as I guess the biggest benefit that the StarWind appliance brings to the table, what would you say that would be?
Let's see. I think there will be two benefits in the first place because one, as I said, is simplicity. You really don't need to do anything other than put servers in the rack and spin up your virtual machines on them. And second huge benefit is StarWind being single point of support for the entire solution. So with that, we fix two big issues. One issue is you need to contact different people for presumably one issue, which makes it a little bit complicated. And second part of it is possible finger pointing. Whenever you go into a multi-vendor solution, there will always be something like, no, it's Microsoft, no, it's VMware, no, it's Veeam, no, it's StarWind. So we try to take that off the table and just provide a single, how we call it, throat to choke. So when customer needs help, he gets help from one place, and we make sure that our internal communication resolves all your support requests without going to any other vendor for help.
Oh wow, that makes a big difference when it comes time to needing some assistance there, trying to troubleshoot an issue. That makes a lot of sense there. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So looks like we have a question here from Bradley. Any integration with Zen or interfacing with CloudStack? So Brad, from a Veeam perspective, and I can't speak for Max, but from a Veeam perspective, I don't see us supporting Zen server anytime soon, at least in the roadmap that I've heard of. Again, just going back to the market share, VMware and Microsoft Hyper-V really own the market today, it seems like. So, unfortunately there, but I can't speak for Max. Max, what would you say to that?
I would say that we're working on Zen server and KVM support, but we'll obviously have to reconsider our backup strategy. I thought Veeam is working on Zen server backup support as well. Just joking, no worries. Yeah, we can support multiple hypervisors. So whenever you're going for a hypervisor which is a little less popular than Hyper-V or VMware, to be particularly correct, vSphere, you just need to make sure you have a solid backup solution in place. Other than that, StarWind is still block backend storage, which supports vast majority of hypervisors.
Okay. Now, we also have another question here from Andrew. Does virtual servers connect to HCA, or do your virtual servers run on the HCA?
The virtual servers run on the HCA. Otherwise, that renders the whole solution useless and brings it to the old architecture of dedicated SAN. So HCA is the place where you run both storage and your virtual servers.
Perfect, perfect. So hopefully that answers your question there, Andrew. Let's see, a question from Keith. Does StarWind appliance support storage snapshots?
Yes, StarWind appliance does support storage snapshots, and there are at least 3 ways to do storage snapshots with StarWind. So I'll be glad to share more details, but I think that's better to do over the email. And you have my contact details on the screen, and I'll gladly answer that question for you.
Yeah, Keith. So shoot over an email over to Max, and he can reach out to you and go over that question a little bit more in depth for you. So it's up there on the screen. Hopefully they answer your question though right now. Let's see. Marvin, setting up a new physical 2 Dell server Hyper-V install and have older spare Dell servers to use for storage. What's the best way to set it up? Also want to mirror this in another office and use each site as a DR for one another. Trust me when I say, Marvin, you are not the only person doing it or setting it up that way. But what I would want to spend a little bit more time talking about that, about the Veeam solution in your environment there. So shoot me an email, shoot Max an email, and again, we can spend a little bit more time going into depth on that for you. Now, Max, this may be a question you have the answer to. I do not off the top of my head, but what version of Veeam is bundled with the StarWind HDA?
Right now it's version 9.
Version 9, okay. Do we know a specific product, an addition there?
So by default, it's the Veeam Essentials. I think it's Veeam Essentials Standard. And if you're interested in upgrading, you can always inquire for another version. And of course, there is always the ability to bring in your own license.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, it looks like, and Andrew may be a little confused here, but can you run it as VMware and Hyper-V? I'm guessing that's a question over there for you, Max.
Yes, you can run it at both Hyper-V and VMware version. We do support both of them.
Okay, gotcha. And it looks like, Keith, I misunderstood your question, so I apologize about that. But Veeam Storage Snapshots, that's going to be compatible with EMC VNX, HP 3PAR, left hand, and then certain NetApp arrays as well. And version 9.5 when that's released, we are going to be introducing Nimble to that list as well. But today, that would be it. So hopefully that answers your question there. Let's see what other questions, guys. And keep the questions coming. We have about 8 minutes left here, so I want to make sure we get everything answered. If not, jot down our email addresses. That way you guys can shoot us a one-off email as well. But looks like a question here from Carlton. Is there a way to set up a StarWind mirrored cluster and send that data to a remote site with limited bandwidth?
Yes, this is absolutely possible, and there are more than 2 solutions you can use. First one, you can use StarWind HA on-site, so you will have synchronous replication of your data on-site, and then an asynchronous replica off-site. And the second will be slightly different. Your off-site replica will be in Azure. And the third way of replicating your data is with Veeam Replication. If you just want some data replicated, let's say you have certain virtual machines which are mission critical, and should a disaster happen, you need those virtual machines up and running, you can use Veeam's replication on the StarWind hyperconverged appliance to replicate those machines exclusively to the DR location.
Perfect, perfect. So hopefully that answers your question there. And then, Max, another question for you here. When Andrew was asking about can you run it as VMware and Hyper-V, he was actually meaning at the same time. So what would your comment to be that?
Let's see. So basically, let's say if there are 4 nodes, 2 running Hyper-V, 2 running vSphere, technically, yes, that should be possible. If you mean running nested virtualization, I'm not sure any of the hypervisors officially support that. So basically, if the question is you can, the answer is yes. If the question is should you, I'm not sure.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So hopefully, Andrew, that answers your question there. But as far as the questions there, guys, that looks like it's about it. So what we can do is hang out here for just another minute before we're going to have to hop off here. But if you have any last-minute questions, anything else that Max and I can answer for you, now's the time. But if not, you have all of our contact information, so feel free to shoot us an email individually. All right, guys. Well, that looks like that's all the questions there. So again, the webinar, you should be getting a recording of it as well as even possibly a copy of the PowerPoint slides. So with that, we appreciate you joining the webinar today. Again, you have all of our contact information. So until next time, Have a good one.